Welcome to the Entrepreneur Gene. I'm your host, Laurie Barkman. Each week, we'll hear from founders and CEOs to explore key decisions they've made for growth, value creation, and challenges along the way. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, offering entrepreneur advisory services from transition to transaction. Don't forget to hit subscribe, follow us for the latest episodes, and visit thebusinesstransitionsherpa.com for more exclusive content. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Gene. I'm Laurie Barkman. I am so excited to be with my guest today. She is a newer friend of mine and a friend nonetheless who has a lot to add to the story here about the Entrepreneur Gene. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a seasoned sales professional, but a fun fact is that she also has a degree in nutrition and was previously a registered dietitian. Got to explore that. She has coached and helped many businesses achieve growth, and especially in what she's doing today as an outsourced sales leader and the owner of Geared for Growth at Sales Xceleration. Welcome to the show, Jaclyn Beatty. Welcome.
Thanks, Lori. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. And I see we match today. We think alike. We're both in blue turquoise, and looks like you may have even planned it. You're matching your book behind you.
I am matching my book. Thank you. Yeah, I'll say I planned that. That's exactly right. Well, hey, welcome, Jackie, and let's dive in. The very first question I love to ask all my guests is there an entrepreneurial gene and what does it mean to you?
Yes, I love this question, Lori. And I may have a little different answer than your other guests who said, yes, absolutely, no question. I've always known I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've had a little bit of a different journey to get here to entrepreneurship. Um, but that makes me say that, yes, I think there is an entrepreneurial gene because that helps to explain my journey to getting here. But I will say that I also think that, like leadership, it is something that entrepreneurs can be made, if not born. And I'll get into that more as we talk. But I think that the really great, exciting thing about entrepreneurship is even if you don't know from a young age that's the route you want to go, it's never too late to get there. And that's what I find to be really exciting about it.
That is a really good message. I think some people feel like, "Oh, it's too late for me. I can't change my path." But you and I think have a shared story in that fact that yes, you can change your path. Let me ask you this, did you have any family members that had been running a business?
I don't come from a family business. I don't have parents or grandparents who are entrepreneurs, but I did have some extended family members. I had an uncle who was an entrepreneur, and a few cousins that I always found their story interesting. And then later in life, I had some friends who became entrepreneurs. My father in law was an entrepreneur. So I'm fortunate that I've had entrepreneurs around me, but I don't have that typical story of, yes, my parents were entrepreneurs, or yes, my grandparents were entrepreneurs, and I'm tying it directly to that.
I think there's something really smart when kids go through college, they graduate, young adults graduate from college, and then they wanna work in a big company and get big company experience. And maybe this is part of your story where you worked for other companies and you got that experience, but then eventually you said, "Hey, I'm gonna go out on my own." So yeah, I definitely wanna talk more about that. I'm gonna ask you a little more questions about your background, but just as a thought starter, what were those things that you felt that you were missing in your career that you wanted to lean in on entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, you touched on it a little bit, Lori, but I like to say I'm a recovering corporate sales leader. And I'm so thankful for that experience and everything it taught me because that's what's allowing me to help business owners today and share my skill set. But I think when I responded that I think there is an entrepreneurial gene and that's the reason for my journey, I found myself throughout my career, I made a few pivots. And each time I did that, the first pivot being from clinician into sales, and then the second being from corporate into entrepreneurship. Um, a lot of people said to me, "Why? Why would you do that? You have this great thing going for you, everything's going well. Why would you leave that?" And even within my corporate experience, each time I built my team and got them rolling, and things were going well. They were exceeding sales goals, they were doing great. I found myself ready for the next challenge. And again, many people around me saying, "Are you crazy? Why are you moving on? You just built this amazing team. Why wouldn't you stick around and see how it goes?" But I always felt like I was ready for that next challenge and ready for that next thing to fix. And when I realized that's what I enjoy, give me a challenge, let me fix something, let me put my stamp on it. Um, to me, I couldn't quite figure out what is the reason that I feel I'm no longer a fit for this situation. What's the reason that I continue to look for that next opportunity to build something? And it took me a while. It took me much later into my career than some other people. But eventually I came to that and realized, you know what? I think it's time to branch out on my own, take that leap, and build my own instead of continuing to build and fix and challenge myself within other businesses, which, again, amazing experience. I'm so thankful for it. But I also knew it was time to make that leap. And so that's what I mean when I say a little bit of a different journey to get here. It was that change from corporate into something entrepreneurial.
Absolutely. You said the word challenge. I'm going to dive in on that for our next conversation, which is, what are some of the challenges that you're facing today as a business owner and someone who works very closely with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think initially the challenge, of course, jumping from corporate into something entrepreneurial is you go from having a team or a department for every little thing that you need to it's you and you're running it, you're wearing all the hats and making all of the decisions yourself, which is to me really exciting. But it's a learning opportunity. I think where I am now with my business, the challenge I have is the balance of wearing all those hats and doing an outstanding job for my clients, making sure I'm on point with client deliverables and needs, but also balancing that with business development and running the back end side of my business. So that's the current challenge that I have is, you know, that big leap from having support and people to do these things for you to, oh, it's me, I'm running it, I'm doing it.
So, how would you provide advice from your experience for entrepreneurs who are feeling this pinch? And believe me, there are many of them out there who feel that, they are the ones leading the charge. And you're in your case, because sales is your specialty, you are the rainmaker, quite literally, because that's your that's your role. But in an organization where there might be some other folks in the room who have sales experience, but we just haven't let go of the reins yet. What kind of encouragement do you have for business owners when it comes to them being the rainmaker, and what do they need to start to put in place to help separate a bit?
Yeah, I think for me, that willingness to accept help in a couple different forms, in the form of advice, in the form of peer groups, and getting comfortable with the idea that you don't have to be the expert in every area and you don't have to be the one that is always doing that particular thing you did before. So, in the example of sales, entrepreneurs when they're starting their business, they have to sell. They have to do it. It's their business and they a lot of times love it, but as they grow their business, they can't do it anymore. They've got to run their business and they need to bring in someone else who can do that work for them. So, one of the most pleasant surprises for me coming from corporate into this small to mid-sized business community is that people are so willing to help. People are willing to grab a coffee with you, they're willing to give you advice, give you their time, refer you to somebody else. It's just such a wonderful community. So I'm glad that I had entrepreneurs in my life who said, "Jackie, reach out. Talk to this person, talk to that person. They're going to be willing to give you their time. You don't need to try to become an expert in accounting. That's not what you do. You don't need to become an expert in payroll. That's not your area of expertise." So I think just that idea of, I don't have to do it all. That's okay. And there are lots of people out there that can help me. And I just need to be open to finding that help and taking that help. That's been huge for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackie, you're in a space that is kind of a new word. We're getting used to seeing it, which is fractional. Fractional, we see fractional this, we see fractional that. And I want to put that out there that that's an industry you're serving and you're serving it in a really interesting way. So if you can, let's talk about what's fractional sales, right? And what excites you about this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I serve fractionally for B2B, small to mid sized businesses who need either help building out their sales function, or maybe they've got some semblance of a sales team or a sales department, but they don't have a sales leader. And they need someone with my background to come in and say, this is how great sales teams operate. Let me come in and put some structure to it and coach and develop your team. Um, the fractional world and trend has really blown up over the last 10 to 12 years. Sales Acceleration has been around for about 11 to 12 years, and they were one of the first fractional sales groups to exist and launch. To me, the reason that this trend is escalating and growing is because of the benefit to the business owner. Everything that I was just saying about being willing to take help, it's all tied back to that. If you're the business owner and you're trying to do everything, you may not be able to do any of them well because you're wearing so many hats. So, this allows the business owner to access talent, experience, years of experience that they may not be able to or need to afford on a full time basis. So you get this benefit of someone who's coming in with years and years of experience in their area of expertise that can come in, identify problems, identify the gaps, put an action plan into place right away, and get results very quickly. And it saves the business owner time and money. They don't have to go out and recruit, hire, onboard someone for this function, pay a full salary, benefits, all that payroll burden. So I think that some people see, or will say, what's up with the fractional trend? But really, in my opinion, it's not a trend. It's here to stay because you're able to outsource functions that as a business owner, they may not excite you, they may not be your area of expertise. You can bring someone else in to do that work for you. And now you're able to focus on the work that you enjoy, want to do, and use your experience to your highest capacity and ability in your business. Um, so I really think, especially for those small to mid-sized businesses, they know they need the help, but they just may not be big enough to bring someone on full time. This is a really nice option and way for them to get that experience and get it quickly.
So, Jackie, in the first part of this, we learned a lot about you from you. We want to take it to the next level, learn a little bit more about your background, especially this pivot of going from corporate and your focus on healthcare to sales and now working with small businesses. So, tell me a little bit about your origin story.
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm a proud Pittsburgher. I was born and raised here in the Berg, and my husband Scott was as well. We met at Penn State, and I got my nutrition degree from Penn State. And shortly after college, Scott and I actually moved out to New York. So we had a really fun adventure for 9 years living right outside of New York City. And so that was really great to get that perspective of a new city and something completely different than Pittsburgh. But when I was in New York, I started my career as a clinical dietitian in the hospital setting. And as I alluded to earlier, Lori, I pretty quickly felt, oh, I'm getting bored with the routine and the mundane. I'm ready for the next thing. So I took on various roles within the hospital and ultimately landed as a manager for the nutrition department. Through that, I realized I'm not sure I want to work in hospitals forever. I really want to do something bigger, have a bigger impact. And started working on my MBA at that time and was networking with some of my vendors at the hospital. So I was a customer of Abbott Laboratories and ultimately got recruited to work for them selling their nutrition products. So that was the first huge pivot I made in my career, going from this clinical nutrition world over to the world of sales. And of course, like I said, everyone in my clinical network saying, "Are you sure? You wanna do this? You've got a really good thing going for you." And I just knew it was the right thing to do. I will admit, I thought sales would be a lot easier than it was. I say sales is simple but not easy. And I had to learn how to move from subject matter expert to sales and selling. And so that was really excellent training that I had, perfect fit that I was selling to the folks I worked with prior, the industry I worked with prior. I knew the products, so I really was focused on learning selling. But again, a couple of years into carrying the bag, being out in the field, I realized, I missed the leadership element that I had in the hospital. I want to get back into that. So, got into the leadership development program with Abbott. Ultimately, that led to roles as a district sales manager and then as a regional sales manager. So, really, the bulk of my career in corporate, 10 plus years, was directly leading field sales teams. And that's really what I love. That's what I'm passionate about is finding the right talent, getting them in the right seats, coaching them and developing them to perform at their highest potential. And that was my whole job. My job was hiring sales folks for their roles, onboarding, training them, and then being in the field, helping them prep for sales calls, providing coaching and feedback. And it was a really great experience. I worked with some really impressive people. But again, I found myself saying, I think culturally I'm not a fit anymore because I'm looking to really do something different. And um, it took me a while to figure out what that should be, to be honest with you, Lori. I thought long and hard about it. And again, had people saying, "You got such a great thing going for you. Why would you give that up? Why would you leave?" And it really wasn't that anything was wrong, but it was just that desire to do something more and build something on my own. So again, that's where some of the amazing entrepreneurs I have in my friend group and in my personal network, as I talked with them to say, ready for the next chapter and looking to figure out what that should be. Again, take the help, take the advice. It's so impactful. And a few of them challenged me. I'm like, Jackie, I think it's time. Why don't you consider building your own thing? And so once I realized and recognized that entrepreneurial gene, Lori, to tie it back to that, it just took me a while to realize that it was there, and that was the reason that I kept looking to do something more and to do something different and take on new challenges, and so landing here where I am now consulting with small to mid-sized businesses who need a sales leader, it's the perfect fit because it allows me to use my skill set. I'm helping businesses here in Pittsburgh. I'm helping them grow. I'm helping them hire, taking stress off the plate of these business owners to say, you don't have to try to do the sales anymore. You don't have to spend your time managing the sales team. Let me take that for you. I've got it. And so it's really been this cool story that I left New York to come back to Pittsburgh. When I became a sales manager for Abbott, I was really fortunate that I could move back here. As I mentioned, my husband Scott and I are both from here. We have family here, and New York was amazing. We had the best time, but we always hoped that we'd be able to make it back home and do what a lot of Pittsburghers do and boomerang back to the city that we love. And we're really thankful that that worked out. So here we are. That's my story.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned the word advice, and so that tees up the next question really well, which is if you could go back in time to give yourself some entrepreneurial advice, what would it be and when would it be?
Yeah, honestly, I think I would just say do it sooner. Go. Don't hesitate. You got this. Like I said, I tend to really I overthink and make sure, is this the right way to go? Is this the right path? And as I look back and reflect with you, Lori, I see now that there were points in time where I felt ready to do this and I felt ready to jump and branch and do my own thing. So I'm so happy I'm here now. I'm really thankful I got all that experience, but I think just that, extra affirmation of do it. You're ready. You're going to add a ton of value to these business owners and it's going to be so fulfilling. That's really what I think I'd share.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. And so you're busy outside of work. What are things that you're passionate about where you spend your time when you're not helping businesses grow?
Yeah, well, I spend all my time with my family. As I mentioned, I have my wonderful husband, Scott, and we've got 2 young boys. So our weekends are filled with all things family. We're also fortunate to have both of our sets of parents here in Pittsburgh. My brother's here. So we're really just fortunate and thankful to spend our time with family. On the weekends in the summer, you'll find us on our boat, swimming and tubing with our kiddos. And this time of year, our weekends are really spent on the soccer field, watching both of our boys play and watching a lot of football. We're big Steelers and Penn State fans in this house. So it's really all about soccer and football right now.
As it should be. Jackie, thank you so much for being with us today. I know people are going to probably want to connect with you. What's a good way for folks to find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. You can find me there or jbeatty at salesxceleration.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll also have some links in the show notes for folks. And they can find us on, of course, their favorite streaming platform and on YouTube where they can see us in our turquoise if they really want to know what we were talking about earlier. Well, that's it for the Entrepreneur Gene. I want to thank you, Jackie, again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. It was great.
And thanks to our audience. If you learned something today, you laughed, you related to the conversation, tell someone about it. Get them to listen to the show too. And if you're so moved, we would really appreciate ratings and reviews in your favorite podcast player. This has been another exciting episode of The Entrepreneur Gene, and we'll see you next time. Hey, that's a wrap. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, working with entrepreneurs who want to escape feeling like a prisoner in their own business and to eventually let go flawlessly. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to help support the Entrepreneur Gene, I'd encourage you to leave a rating and review. Ratings and reviews truly help our show grow and get in front of more entrepreneurs just like you. If you do leave a rating and review, we'll be so happy. Take a screenshot of it, send it to my email, Laurie@btsherpa.com, and we'll send you a free digital copy of my book, The Business Transition Handbook. And we'll also enter you to win one of our monthly swag boxes. For show notes, including links to everything in today's episode, be sure to visit btsherpa.com. Also, as a reminder, you can watch this full video interview on our YouTube channel for the Business Transition Sherpa. While you're there, be sure to check out videos from our award-winning podcast called Succession Stories. We'll see you next time on The Entrepreneur Gene.